All right. Good morning. Welcome to you, dear colleagues and guests, and also all the people who follow us online, which is usually quite a lot. Today we will be discussing the newly introduced role of an EU Commissioner for Health and Animal Welfare. The Animal Welfare Group has worked for and welcomes very much this new role as an EU Commissioner for Animal Welfare. And we're very happy that actually many of you have contributed in the process. The call for the Animal Welfare Commissioner has been supported by more than 300,000 citizens and hundreds of MEPs, and now we seem to have the position in the new Commission. Eurogroup for Animals and Gaia has worked. The two organizations have worked very much for it. So that's the theme of today's discussion: the new Commissioner, what we can do with that, how we can use it, what are the weaknesses, what should we push for. We have Stephanie Ghislain, from Political Affairs Manager at Eurogroup for Animals, to my left, and she will highlight the aspects that are missing in the mission letter. Of course, we have a mission letter for the new Commissioner. It could be elaborated, I think, but Stephanie, you will talk about that. And I will also, I myself have been quite involved in this campaign for the new Commissioner, so I will also say a few words to begin with. Before we kick off this discussion, and then the idea is that we will discuss together how we can move things forward, how we can use the Commissioner to also further our agenda. I will make there are a couple of announcements here before we start this discussion that I will make now. So first, announcement number one: your help is needed to get the official support of your political group for the re-establishment of the Intergroup on the welfare and conservation of animals. As mentioned already by Tilly during the last Intergroup session, the Conference of Presidents has provided a number of decisions regarding the establishment of parliamentary intergroups during this term. And these decisions that the Conference of Presidents have taken, they are the following. The number of intergroups in this term should be 27, as in last term. All applying cross-party groups who wish to be established as EP intergroups need the official support of at least 3 political groups to be able to run as a parliamentary intergroup and receive the support, the logistic support, and for the organization of the meetings. That's, of course, very important to us. And we think that there, as you've probably seen, there are lots of intergroups being promoted, possible intergroups being promoted right now, and not all of them will make it and be recognized as parliamentary intergroups, because there are probably more than 27. So we would like your support as soon as possible to see if you can get your group's support for the intergroup on the welfare and conservation of animals. The number of intergroups a political group can officially support depends on the size. That means that the EPP can support 22 groups, S&D 16, Patriots for Europe 9, ECR 9, Renew 9, Greens 6, Left 5, ESN, Europe of Sovereign Nations 2. And the deadline for members to propose within their respective political groups the establishment of an intergroup is the 24th of October. So we hope that your groups, you represent different political groups here, and I will, of course, in my own group, S&D, see what I can do. I'm sure we can get the support from the S&D, but it needs to be raised. So we hope for your support. Each political group will decide internally on its priorities for the intergroups by the end of November 2024. How each group will decide is up to the group itself. It's an internal matter, so we hope that you will raise it in your group. The coordination of the intergroup package deal will be carried out by the Renew group, which takes over the rotating coordinating role for the political groups from November 2024. The list of intergroups that will be established is due to be approved by the Conference of Presidents the 19th December this year. Yes, so of course that's very important, and we hope for your support. And I think we will also, the Eurogroup will probably also contact some of you so we hope that you can support us. Number 2 announcement, membership of the Animal Welfare Intergroup. If you wish to join the Animal Welfare Intergroup as a member, you can register on the Animal Welfare Intergroup website, or you can directly contact the Intergroup Secretariat. You can also write to me. We have 77 members right now, and we hope that we can get even more. I think that makes us one of the potentially the biggest intergroups in the Parliament.
We are among the biggest.
We are among the biggest.
Yeah.
We hear, yeah. This one. Good. All right. Then announcement number 3. Our first initiative here in this intergroup is a proposal for an oral question on the Commission's plans to include the revision of the still outstanding legislative proposals on animal welfare in its work plan for 2025. So I would like to remind you about the ongoing collection of support confirmations for the proposal of the oral question on the Commission's plans to include the revision of the still outstanding legislative proposals. This is the first initiative of the Animal Welfare Intergroup during this term. And basically, it's about, we will send in an oral question. We need a number of signatures to have this oral question. That means that we call in the Commissioner in the plenary if we get it through. And our question is to the Commission, what's going to happen with the promises that you have made on the legislative proposals on ending the caging of animals, on animal welfare labeling, on the animal welfare at the time of slaughtering. They have promised us to come with these proposals during the last term. They have not delivered. Will they deliver? We, of course, want them to deliver, and that's what we're going to ask them about. And we want to call in the Commissioner to the Parliament and have this debate. And so we hope for you to support, basically. So we're sending around this oral question. I think a lot of you already signed, but anyway, the Eurogroup, I think you will also send around and follow up with those who have not responded if you want to sign it. Yeah. Andreas, do you want to add something?
Yes, a follow-up has been sent yesterday evening, so you should have it in your mailbox.
Great. And I think that's an example. That's the first initiative, but that's an example of how we can coordinate to promote our animal welfare agenda. Announcement number 4. There's an exhibition in the European Parliament in Brussels on the role of the new EU Commissioner on Animal Welfare. During the first week of November, together with the NGOs Gaia, Voice of the Voiceless, and Eurogroup for Animals, I will host an exhibition on the role of the EU Commissioner on Animal Welfare and what that commissioner, which role that commissioner should play. The exhibition will be on the 3rd floor in the Spinelli building in front of the bar. We warmly invite you to join the opening on the 5th of November around lunchtime. You will soon receive an invitation, but meanwhile you can schedule it in your calendar if you want to. Great, then I have some practical information. This meeting is live streamed on Interactio. The meeting will be recorded. The video recording and presentations will be uploaded on the Intergroup's website, so you can find them there. And interpretation is provided in English, French, German, Italian, and Polish. Great. Then let's get on with the discussion. I will first say a few words on the Commissioner for Animal Welfare before I give the floor to Stephanie from Eurogroup for Animals. because I was very involved myself in this campaign, which was supported by Gaia and the Eurogroup for Animals, to have this commissioner for animal welfare. And I can just explain to you, some of you were here last time, so you've been following and supporting this campaign. But we have, just to wrap it up, I mean, we have 300,000 people who have signed this campaign. And I believe we have more than 200 MEPs last term who also signed the campaign under the hashtag EU for Animals. We wanted, our demand was that we wanted the animal welfare to be explicit part of the name in one of the commissioners' titles, and that has not happened before. And we wanted this. We actually thought it was a difficult task, but we brought it up with the Commission and we tried to put pressure on the Commission. And now we were very happy to see that Ursula von der Leyen has named one of the commissioners Commissioner for Health and Animal Welfare. That's the Hungarian commissioner. We think that it will play an important role. First of all, it's a democratic victory. We have a survey from June 24, from this summer, who says that 70% of EU citizens, they support to have a commissioner with the explicit responsibility for animal welfare. And we know that from the EU surveys, Eurostat, that more and more people put emphasis on animal welfare. So it is good that we reflect this opinion from the citizens in the Commission's language also. But I think from my point of view, I just talked with Stephanie, and perhaps I will say some positive things on the new Commissioner for Animal Welfare, and then you can be the critical voice. But I think the positive things that we should pay attention to here is that I think I would point out 3 things that we can use this for. And let's see in the debate if you agree or we should also look at other things. But first of all, I think that having a commissioner gives us a possibility to hold someone accountable. We've seen many times that responsibility for animal welfare has been pushed around between different people. Nobody takes responsibility. An example of this is when we've had unfortunately different scandals when it comes to animal welfare in different areas. One of the scandals that I remember from last term was a case of several thousand cattle that were being transported from Spain to Libya in the Mediterranean Sea on ships, and they caught blue tongue disease. And so they could not arrive to Libya, and they ended up being stranded on this ship for months, and nobody took responsibility for what happened. And we contacted the Spanish authorities, the Libyan authorities, the European Commission. I think we also wrote to different countries that were closer to where the ships were. And nobody did anything, and they were there for months, and they obviously suffered badly, and they had to be euthanized in the end, but that took a long time. And we've seen several of these scandals where it has been difficult to find out who actually has the responsibility. Nobody want to take responsibility. And I think with the new commissioner, we have somebody we can say, you have to do something, because actually you're the Commissioner for Animal Welfare, so it will be harder, I also think, in the media to say, I don't have anything to do with this. Well, it's in your job title, buddy, so you should do something about it. That is number one from my point of view. Second, I think when it comes to implementation, we've seen in many cases that implementation of the rules that we have for animal welfare is not working. Rules are not being enforced. When you look at the animal transports, I mean, we had the ANIT committee last term. We had whole reports on the lack of enforcement and the need to update the rules for animal transports. And it's pretty clear, if you ask the European Commission itself, that the rules for animal transports are not being enforced, that actually these rules are not sufficient, but they're not even being enforced right now. And that's not something I say, that's, if you ask the European Commission, I think they will admit this. So we have somebody, when it comes to implementation, to also hold accountable to make sure that action is being taken. This is no guarantees, of course, that action is being taken, but I think it makes it easier for us to push for it. So that's the second thing I would say. And then the third thing I would say is that when it comes to new legislation, as been discussed with the oral question, we have promises from the European Commission that we will have new legislation on ending cages, on animal welfare labeling, on the welfare of animals at the time of slaughtering. And that legislation has not been delivered. We need them to deliver, and I think having a Commissioner for Animal Welfare, again, he needs to do something about this. It's his responsibility that the Commission delivers. We'll get back to the mission letter. Maybe we can just touch upon that now, but Stephanie, you will also mention it. Because that's, I think, the three things I've said: accountability, implementation, and new legislation, that we have better tools for pushing this. I think that's the positive things. Then if I should say a little bit about the negative things that I think we should discuss, the mission letter is, of course, vague. We don't have much concrete in the mission letter, and I think that's something that we need to discuss how we can improve. And we have the hearings coming up, and that might be a good opportunity. I think it is a good opportunity to try to make this more concrete. As far as I can read in the mission letter, I mean, it's what is written about animal welfare for the Animal Welfare Commissioner is really that he should modernize the rules on animal welfare, meeting citizens' expectations. There's a little bit more than that, but it's not a lot. So I think we need to try to make him say something concrete in the hearings. And I think that's basically what I wanted to say here. We have, I think, an opportunity. This is the first time we have animal welfare in the name of the Commissioner, so it gives us some tools. But if you look at the mission letter, I think that's the very weak part, and that's what we need to improve and make more concrete. So let's put our minds together to see how we can do that. Stephanie, then I will give you the floor. Maybe you can solve that problem for us, or help us, guide us in the right direction. And then after your presentation, we will open the floor for a discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I have the bad role, of course. No, I completely agree with you, Niels. It's a great achievement to have, I'm sorry, to have got the word animal welfare now in the title of a commissioner, and I think we should definitely cheer about that. But of course, we are always looking ahead, and as Niels explains very well, the letter is a bit vague. Just to start with the facts, out of 14 bullets, I think one is on animal welfare. There are actually more bullets on food and food sustainability, which I'm not against, of course, in this letter, although food is in the title of another commissioner. It's not that it's a bad thing that is also in charge of food sustainability, but just to say it's a bit imbalanced. And as you refer to the language, indeed, the language that is in the letter, if we start with what is in the letter, modernize the rules, yes, it's not so bad because it still means upgrade, in our opinion, update. But then even if the letter are usually quite vague, they could have referred, for instance, to the need to align with science, with the EFSA opinions, or to the need to rely on the 5 domains, something basic like this. Another point that is quite interesting too is that, as you say, we are expecting legislation on the keeping and on the slaughtering of animals. And it's interesting to see that in the letter there's no explicit reference on phasing out cages, for instance. Of course, this is something we want. I'm not saying. So you can see it in the 2 different ways. Either a bit negative, it's a bit bad that they don't already explicitly say that they're going to deliver on the ban on cages. But you can also look at it in a slightly more positive way and hope that then they won't restrict the revision of the animal welfare legislation to the ban on cages. Because of course, as you're well aware, there are species that really need also updated rules, like chicken used for meat production, also fish who don't have rules at the moment. So we really hope that the revision will not be restricted on cages. And another point that is in the letter that is quite interesting is that there is a reference also to the import of exotic animals, interestingly. Can that be actually an opener for the EU to deliver on an EU-wide positive list for exotic pets? Maybe. That's not really clear now, but it's still a reference that is a bit surprising, a good surprise, I mean. No? But I think that, as you said, Niels, this is really clearly topics on which you can try to get more clarity in the hearings, because there are some grounds to get good news, but there's a bit of need for more details. Now, what is missing? As you can imagine, for us, of course, there's a lot that could be missing, but if I can just point some main items that we saw as missing. Of course, animal welfare is not really only the topic for wild animals and farmed animals. So at the moment, if you look at how the Commission functions, the welfare of animals used for scientific purposes is usually handled in DG Environment. Same as well when you look at wild animals. And at the moment, DG Santé is doing more farmed animals, and we saw recently also companions with cats and dogs legislation. So this is really scattered around the Commission, as we said, sometimes the responsibility runs back. So, of course, having a Commissioner for Animal Welfare could lead us to hope that that person will bring leadership and expertise on all the topics touching upon animal welfare. That means working with a lot of commissioners, but still having all those topics within the same directorate. And at the moment, that is really unclear. There is no bullet explicitly on animals in science, nothing in the letter on this, nothing on companions, and there is no mention of the scope of the position. And we know that for some other candidates, it might be a bit unclear for them if that falls under their own responsibility now that there is a Commissioner for Animal Welfare. So the scope could also be an interesting point to clarify with the candidate. Also, another aspect that was a bit missing in our opinion is also all the discussions around the cooperation that should happen with the Commissioner for Agriculture and Food on revising the Common Agricultural Policy and on how to use this revision in order to support better the transition to higher welfare systems, and also to look at not only the CAP, but also other financing tools that can be used in order to support the transition, working, for instance, on having a more targeted approach from the European investment banks and all those other aspects, so working together on this. And another point on which, of course, we would like the Commissioner for Animal Welfare to cooperate with the Commissioner for Agriculture and Food. If you have seen, as all the Commissioner candidates have to deliver also on the outcome of the strategic dialogue report. In this report, there is also a call to have an action plan on plant-based food by 2026. And this is also something that we would have hoped to see appear somewhere, cooperation on that front. As I mentioned, also animals used for scientific purposes. As you might remember, there has been also this ECI last term on safe cruelty-free cosmetic commit to a Europe without animal testing. I'm sorry, this is a mouthful for a name of an ECI. But in the last term, the Commission also committed to deliver a roadmap to phase out animal testing for chemical safety assessment. And this is a work that is ongoing at the Commission level and that really we hope to see finalized in this term very early. So hopefully this is also something that the Commissioner for Animal Welfare can work on with other colleagues, can be with the Commissioner designate for, of course, innovation, research and startups. Also at the moment, one of the DG involved is environment, water resilience. So the candidate commissioner in charge of that portfolio might need cooperation, but we hope that the Commissioner for Animal Welfare can bring leadership on that roadmap to get this to happen. And also to work on prioritizing non-animal science through different ways in the context of the EU framework program, but also using the European research action on non-animal approaches, and biomedical research and testing of pharmaceuticals. So those are all steps that have been started in the previous term and that need to be carried through or fully delivered in this term on animals used for scientific purposes. And finally, as we said, animal welfare is touching upon so many different policy areas. So it's going to be very important for that commissioner to build connection, to work, not to avoid the work in silos, and to be able to really bring together and cooperate with a lot of commissioners on, I'm thinking about climate as well. I'm thinking about the commissioner in charge of water resilience, the role of agriculture, for instance, in the use of water, and livestock farming is very important. And also, for instance, on trade, because we all know that the upcoming revision will also touch upon the fact that the rules need to be imposed to all products placed on the EU market, including imported ones, and that it's going to be a big battle. So as we could see in the mission letter for Commissioner-designate Hansen, there was a notion that he should work with Commissioner-designate Šefčovič, so the Commissioner for Trade, in order to find a way to make this work for agri-food products. And I think this should be also the same for the Animal Welfare Commissioner, because within that revision that is coming soon, this trade dimension is super important too. And I will stop there so we can have a conversation on what you see is missing maybe in this letter.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Just one question before we open the floor. Do you have any information on who will be the committees that will participate in the hearing for the Animal Welfare Commissioner?
I think Agri-Envy and ITRE invited. There were several that were invited. Santé and ITRE, Pêche as well.
Pêche also. Okay, and I think it has not been decided finally, but probably will. Maybe today even it will be decided. Anyway, I will open up the floor. So the ones who have questions or comments, I see that Asger, you raised your hand.
Thank you very much, and also for this work here. I think it's very important. I'm a dairy farmer from Denmark. I've been dairy farming more than 40 years, so I know a little bit about animal welfare. I have 650 cows, so it's we have a lot of animals on my farm, and we take care of that every day because it's very, very important. I think my first priority will be informance of the legislation we have now, because it's very, very important. But I can see there's a big difference from country to country in Europe of this legislation we have. So it will be my first priority in this missions letter. And so I think also it's very, very good to have a commissioner that is responsible for this, for the animal welfare, so we can go to him and discuss and also make a new law maybe. But first, it's the legislation we have now. We must enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Asger. Manuela?
Yeah, thank you very much. I also think that it is really a victory that we have an animal welfare commissioner, animal welfare in the title of a commissioner. I think that's the first time that this ever happens. We, of course, in the parliament fought hard very much for this, but also people outside, our citizens fought very hard for this, and this is an important step to give animal welfare more visibility, and also it values more animal welfare to have it in the title. And it is not only for us or for the citizens who have now a person they can address to, but also to ministers, because I also spoke to a lot of ministers in member states who said, yeah, but I was pushing for this law, and it was not delivered. So also ministers have more the possibility to tackle exactly one person on this on missing legislations or on step that we have to take forward. I think that of course, we have to put pressure on the Commissioner regarding the missing legislation. Niels, you were mentioning it, the killing of animals, the keeping of animals, and also the animal welfare label that I think is really crucial, if it's made right, to empower citizens to make decisions that foster animal welfare when they buy products. So I really hope that these missing legislative proposals will come forward. But another role would this new commissioner have for me, that is not only to come forward with this legislation, but also to be the guardian of European law, meaning that he has to have a close look how member states implement animal welfare laws that we decide. We have two on the table, keeping the welfare of companion animals and the transport of animals. So this would be also a very important role. I agree with you that the mission letter is a little bit weak because it just mentions one point, but also look at the positive side. It mentions a very decisive point where we were really also fighting very hard in the last legislation to get that on the table, and it is the regulation of wildlife trafficking, and maybe this could lead to a positive list of which animals can be kept in Europe. And this would also foster animal welfare. So I am happy for this reference because it's an important one, but for sure it's just a start. That cannot be everything that the Commissioner is doing. And here we, from the European Parliament, have to keep pressure. We have to have written questions. We have him here, to have him here in the intergroup asking me questions. But I also want to tell the people outside, the citizens, don't give up, go on, putting also pressure on the Commissioner. And for me, now that the hearings are approaching on the Animal Welfare Commissioner, is to understand in the hearings his political will. What exactly does he really want to put forward, if he's just concentrating on health, or if he sees animal welfare just a niche theme, or if he really wants to put something. So I think this needs to be scrutinized very intensively in the hearings. And what I maybe question to you would be, Stephanie, what exactly this overlapping competences, because for the first time the commissioners will have overlapping competences. So what we as European Parliament can do also to address other commissioners so that animal welfare issues, if the political will is not that much there, or also can be helped, the new commissioner, what we as European Parliament can do also to address other commissioners to get more animal welfare in this legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manuela. And I think we will take some more input and then you will have a chance to respond. So, Raquel.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Niels. I'm sorry, I'm having a bit of problem with Thursday morning Strasbourg brain here, so I'll try to be as concrete as possible. But a few things. Big success. So congratulations to you and to the staff of Eurogroup for Animals. I think we cannot stress that enough. On the side of the hearings, I would say, forget Teresa Rivera niet. Don't forget her, because she obviously has been the responsible minister and the architect for one of the most far-reaching, revolutionary pieces of animal welfare legislation in recent European history in Spain. So I think that we have a big ally there. So we have to question Farelli very well, but I think that we have a very big ally and an executive vice president with a gigantic portfolio from a big member state. So I would put a bit of emphasis there as well, just a thought. And I would also, maybe we could collectively go to map the situation in the member states at the moment, who are ministers, where do we have allies, where do we have people who still have to convince, where do we have people sitting who have shown to be quite hostile to animal welfare issues, and see if we, from our EP perspective, can also lobby the Council, because I think that's going to be key to success in the next few years. So not only focus on the Commission, but also on the side of the Council. And indeed, I agree with my colleague from Denmark. I think that implementation and a level playing field is going to be crucial to ensure that we get support also from not the usual suspects, but also, you know, from a lot of our farmers and farming associations, that we are all playing by the same rules. And also that when rules have to be followed, and they're not, that one, member states are going to be taken in front of the Commission, and two, the Commission is going to do something about that, because we have seen a lot of cases of improper implementation or simply ignoring the rules, and then the Commission, you know, points with the finger, so, and that's the end of it. So I think that being very sharp on that is going to be important. Thank you.
Thank you. Great inputs. Mikael.
Thank you, Niels, very much also for this event. Yeah, we have the Commissioner for Animal Welfare. Let's make sure that it doesn't stop there. You know, we don't need a title. We need an essence. You know, we need a content, and we need a commissioner that is actually devoted directly to this topic. And from what he presented in the missions letter, it seems that he somehow tries to bypass the focus to alternative issues. Why is that? What kind of attitude is that? You know, so we really need to be sure that he actually understands what it stands for. You know, like that animal welfare is something that is really is interesting millions in European Union, and they demanded a change. That the signal was very strong, the strongest probably ever. So there's no space to actually bypass or somehow neglect that issue. So all those missing parts that were stressed needs to be addressed during the negotiations for sure, and we really have to see guarantees that he will actually pay attention to these topics and try to deliver the best he can. And not only that, it's not only about the existing legislative, it's not about the promised legislative that it's somewhere in the pipeline. It has to be also to actually about the perspective beyond that, you know, because we still have a lot of missing problems that have not been addressed. If I need to stress one, then the aquatic animals and the welfare aspects of that. That's a topic that needs to be addressed very fast, so to say, you know.
Which topic, Mikael?
The aquatic animals, you know, and welfare aspects of, let's say, octopus farms, you know, and stuff like that. Salmon farms and eel farms, and I don't know what else, you know. So the fish is very much the silent victim of the current situation. So let's work on that as well. Now from the technical point of view, you know, like I'm sure that if we have the chance to give him questions, we will. And these questions will be very direct, and we will not be satisfied with some vague responses. But what can we do? I'm asking myself if he proves himself not being responsive. There's also the option. If he simply is not ready to actually deal with the stuff that he is supposed to do. Because we know all that during the hearings there is also an option of disapproving commission designate, but I'm wondering whether this is really a plausible option in the current situation, because the worst case scenario would be that we would somehow get trapped if we would disapprove a single candidate and then the member country will simply not provide another one. We end in a bad situation where no one is a winner. You know, so these need to be also considered. So let's think about way how to really squeeze him properly to get the proper answers and to make him really devoted. And also think back in our minds that there are limitations to actually what we probably can do. I don't say that it's an excluded option, but the disapproval of a candidate will be very problematic from the perspective of this House, let's say it like that. So it will be tough, but we need to be tough as well on him, because until now I'm not very convinced that he's the right man for this position. So let's dig in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, you have the floor. I don't think we met yet,
No,
so I don't...
not officially. So I'll just briefly introduce myself to the group. My name is Jessica van Leeuwen. I'm from the Farmer Citizens Movement in the Netherlands, and I'm part of the EPP. And I'm actually an animal scientist by training and specialized in animal health and welfare. So I spent the last 15 years trying to make improvements on animal welfare, in a way that it's actually realistic. So you can get everybody along, all the stakeholders. Of course, everybody, when you ask, is in favor of improving animal health and animal welfare. And those are very much linked. So we should not forget that when we're talking about welfare, it's the whole package of health and welfare. So it's the behavioral aspect, but it's definitely also the health aspect. So what I've seen over those 15 years is that with the best intentions, we've tried to come up with legislation that would improve welfare from one standpoint, but would create another problem, like on a sanitary aspect. So we need to make very sure that what we're doing doesn't create a problem on the other side. So it's a very multidisciplinary approach here. What I also think is very important that we should ask the Commissioner about is that on paper we have EU legislation on welfare. But when you go in practice, there is huge differences in how this is actually followed up in member states. So if you go to a barn in a certain member state, it looks completely different than when you go to other member states. And I'm not going to point fingers or anything, because that's not the point. I think it's, when we're talking about modernizing rules on animal welfare, I think one very important aspect here is harmonize the rule of animal welfare. So actually from the internal market, we have an equal playing field, because today we don't. And that's not only in housing systems, but that's also definitely on use of medication, because on paper we're all the same, but in practice we're not. When it comes to use of antimicrobials, and there's huge differences between member states. So I think that's a very important one before we start to step it up, make sure that we harmonize so we have that equal playing field. And then I think, what I know from my experience and from our voters, I don't know one single farmer that is not in favor of improving animal welfare. The problem is, it needs to be valued. So they need to be able to make the investments that they need to do and, you know, get value for that investment. So get that money back somehow, because otherwise it's not possible for them to make a living. So we need to make sure that what we do also gives them the possibility to earn it back. So do we really have the consumer willing to pay that extra price for that improved animal welfare? Because if I go out on the street and I ask people, do you want to improve animal welfare? They say, yes, yes, we think it's important. But when you go to the supermarket and they need to pay 3, 4 euros more per kilo of meat that they're buying, then all of a sudden that good intention becomes complicated. So we need to make sure that this is an aspect that the Commissioner takes also into consideration. That we're doing it step by step in a way that everybody can get along, both farmers and consumers. So there needs to be a very strong collaboration with the Agri Commissioner. And then there's one more thing which has to do with this, because we have very good animal welfare standards. There's lots of room for improvement, no doubt, and that's why it's very good that we have this group. But when we compare ourselves to the rest of the world, we're not doing a very bad job. If we impose on all the other, parties, third parties, to comply with those rules, it's very complicated. And it puts us out of the market. So we need to make sure that, and it's a bit, this is a bit, I don't have the answer here, but we need to make sure that we keep our own competitiveness in mind, because otherwise we'll have an issue as a European industry in order to be competitive if we go too fast. Yeah, and I want to stress clearly here that that doesn't mean that we shouldn't improve, definitely, but keep all those things in mind.
Thank you for this input. A lot of things to think about. Petrus?
Thank you. Well, in spite of that, I fully support certain enthusiasm in our group on the Commissioner's job title. Let me to be a bit sober. If you read the mission's letter, and this is something the constitution, incoming constitution of his job or her job, the animal welfare first mentioned as among 14 bullet points as 5th from the bottom. Now, analyzing, the lines which are about animal welfare, 4 of them only, it's speaking about modernization of the animal welfare policy. Modernization. I think we are all well aware what kind of political fantasy we might have to overhaul or to modernize. If I change 5% in overall legislation, it might be enough for calling it as modernization. So it's not a complete change, which we are all probably having in mind, expressing so much of hopes and expectations. So I don't think the mission letter is kind of ambitious enough. It speaks about only some of the aspects of the animal welfare. Please pay attention. Nothing about identification, registration, nothing about the foreign trade or our aspect of the animal welfare once we draw any foreign treaties with third countries and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't take it as a victory is won, not at all. So to do it, I would suggest a couple of very concrete steps. Firstly, we as a group, it doesn't matter are we established, but I think we are still continuing our mandate from the previous one. We should write a very clear, putting all the aspects of the animal welfare we have in mind for all members of those committees who will take in that scrutiny exercise. Because not everybody of them is a part of us. And for me, for example, I don't know many policy lines of, for example, some intergroups, about mental health or whatever. I mean, I support, but definitely I am not aware. So we have to approach each of our colleagues presenting very clear expectations on the animal, not to make it number 14 or 15 among those presented in this mission letter. Secondly, if we are not able to do something, for better, so we have to call on our NGOs and public at large to increase pressure. And there should be a wave. I wouldn't say it should be a kind of Milton typhoon letters snowball coming down, but if again those members of relevant committees receive calls and kind of asking for commitment in hearings to raise up those issues, I think we might have something better. And finally, I think we have the title, but not necessarily the person. And let's be ready, to face reality, political reality. We know very clearly from previous engagements, everybody has own opinion and entitled to have, but will he be? So that's why we should speak about the mission, not the person, and to keep all cards open. Thank you.
Thank you, Petrus. Okay, Maria, short intervention. Yes?
Ich fände es gut, wenn wir den Kommissar...
I think it's good if we let the Commissioner designate know that we're going to be in regular contact. We can't just see a Commissioner when there's an urgent issue. I think we need to have regular planned meetings with the Commissioner. And I think that we need to then also say, when we want that regular contact, we don't want to just be dealing with individual files. We need to have regular discussions. And Niels is saying we can do that as a small group, but we can do that as the whole intergroup. We are a large intergroup, and I think we need to say, well, we're going to be cooperating with the Commissioner, but we imagine that that will involve us being involved in the discussions rather than being told that after a decision has been taken.
Great. That's a very good point, Maria. I think there are lots of good points. I will hand the floor to you, Stephanie. You don't have a lot of time, but I will just say, I will not repeat all the points here. I will just say that I think coordinated action, you mentioned it, Petrus, is vital. So I support making a joint statement or letter for the new commissioner designate, putting up some demands or some expectations that we have, and also using that letter to talk to our colleagues in the relevant committees to make sure that the right questions are being tabled. So I support that, and I also support, Maria, your idea on having the commissioner come regularly so we can discuss with that person, because I'm not sure that the person has big experience actually in animal welfare, so we need to raise that. That would be just my words. Stephanie, if you have a couple of minutes to comment.
Just to shortly come in, the interpreters have to finish at 11 sharp.
Yeah.
I'll try to be very fast. I can be. On your question, Manuela, I completely agree with what Raquel has said. I also had noted we need also to look at the hearing of EVP Ribera, because she's going to have a rally under him if he's passing, the candidate under him. And it's also something to look at the hearing of the Commissioner of Agriculture and Food. He's going to have to deliver on the vision for agriculture and food based on the strategic dialogue, and the commitment in the strategic dialogue is also on the animal welfare revision to be delivered by 2026. So clearly, we can also work with him, especially because he's in charge of food, and there is this entire also systemic approach on dietary change that also matters for welfare, so we have to look into that. That's also what I wanted to say. Raquel was saying, talking about support of less usual ally. I think with the strategic dialogue, we really could show that actually animal welfare organization could also work with farmers and get to quite strong wording. In the end, we were quite surprised, but it still happened. So we will continue to do this. I think the Commission is creating a board to follow all this, which is going to be a kind of strategic dialogue continuing with maybe other stakeholders, but we are going to try to be part of this and continue to work. On the point you made, Jessica, I'm sorry I didn't get your last name. Harmonizing, yes, but the legislation, there's been a fitness check by the Commission, and one of the issues with implementation is that it's badly written. It's already lagging so much behind science. There are like 20 EFSA opinions that are not being integrated. So no, they're not great, and I think also the new legislation can help improve the implementation, because at the moment it's badly written. Even the Commission itself says it. So I think we also need the new legislation to improve a level playing field and implementation. Valorization, yes, we talked about animal welfare labeling if it's well done. It's also a question of working on the food environment and you know, on how the people are actually driven to buy certain products, and that actually the more healthy and sustainable and animal welfare friendly options are also more available and attractive. And it's also about working, as we said, about the financing of the transition and how do we support the producers, because in the end they can gain a lot of money by transitioning. It's maybe an investment to start with, but then afterwards it can be compensated. And I think that's it. I think there was no other question for me. I think I've been sharp and short.
Thank you. You have been sharp and short. We have lots of things to think about here. I will tell you, we will return with a proposal for some written statement, demands, expectations. We'll see if we can find some agreement on this. And I will follow up on the invitation of the Animal Welfare Commissioner. Next meeting will be the 24th of October. The main item of debate has not been decided yet, but as it is World Kangaroo Day, we will welcome a group of indigenous people from Australia who will raise the critical issue of EU imports of kangaroo products and will call on us to help for promoting an EU ban on these imports. Yes, so that's all, folks. Thank you for a great discussion, and look forward to seeing you again.